Alright, welcome back. This is our sixth episode in learning C# for game development in Unity game development. So in this episode we'll be covering for loops, and for loops are little things that can execute a block of code X amount of times. So let's get right into it. So the first step to setting one of these up is to use the keyword for, and then give yourself two parentheses here, and then two curly brackets. Alright, and then we're going to go inside here, and we have to give three things. We have to give it an integer, a boolean, and an increment. So usually when you're making a for loop, you just do int I. So you can just make an integer right in there. And then you set it to 0, and this is like our starting point in our for loop. And then we give it a boolean. So the boolean is, it's going to check if the boolean is true, and if it is, then it's going to keep going. And what's cool about for loops is that you can use this integer in our boolean here. So we can just do I is less than 10, or less than and equal to 10. So while I is less than or equal to 10, it'll run whatever's in here. And then we do our increment, and our increment increments pretty much every time our block of code runs. So we'll just put I++ in there. So we just want to add it up by 1, right? And then let's go ahead and print out I here. So here's a very simple for loop. And what this will do is it will initialize our integer I, and then it will run our code, and then it'll check, okay, is this still true? And if it is, it'll increment and then do it again. And I is changing here, so when I has reached 11 in this case, it'll stop going. So let's go ahead and run that. And as you can see, it'll just run through our loop 0 through 10, and it'll print all those out. So for loops are really useful. Usually what I use them for is cycling through game objects such as arrows or, pretty much projectiles, and seeing if it's colliding with an enemy. And then what that'll do is it'll say, okay, this arrow is colliding with this enemy, so it should, apply damage to the enemy and whatnot, and stuff like that. So yeah, you can change the increments. You can do I plus equals 2 here, and then it'll just count by 2 pretty much. So there it goes, counting by 2. And yeah, you can change the increment, you can change the starting point. So yeah, this is very useful for things like cycling through lists, and if you just want to run a block of code 10 times, or however many times you would use this. So yeah, it's pretty simple. You just have your starting point, and then you have your boolean, and then your increment, and then you have your block of code. So those are for loops. Alright, that concludes this episode. Next time we'll be looking at while loops. So they're a different type of loop. Not used as much, but they're still pretty useful. Alright, till then.